Hello, everyone. It is Sunday, the 24th of September, 2023. We made it past the 23rd of September. Judgment Day, rapture predictions. Goodness, there was a lot of predictions for the 23rd, just like there is every single year. I've talked about it too. Robert Breaker. He's a religious person who has a lot of good videos about the Bible. We don't agree, obviously, on like he doesn't make that astronomy connection yet, where the representation of the sun, the moon, and the ether, or whatever you want to call it, is Jesus, Mary, and God. But it is what it is. And then even with the Last Supper, the representation of the 12 disciples at the table with Jesus, those are the representations of the zodiac signs within the seasons, and even in the Bible, it talks about using that for the signs and the seasons, and it talks about firmaments and things like that. But anyways, I'm going on all these tangents. But excuse me, I usually don't even do videos on Sundays, but Zelensky, who is the leader of Ukraine, is I don't know if he still is, but he was in Canada. And of course, in the Ottawa area, there's so much support for this guy, and I'm just he's a warmonger, and I will throw the video out. And I've talked about this before repeatedly about lying about Snake Island, about spokespeople getting fired for lying about crimes against humanity that incited more violence and war towards Russians and civilians, by the way, and how there was even attacks within Ukraine with the soldiers attacking their own civilians, blowing up dams. Nord Stream 2, which even Seymour Hersh has discussed, and I've shared his Substack, and I was talking about at the same time. And and then even with the Polish farmers, where it was Ukrainian air defense, I was calling this stuff out, and people like General Petraeus and others were lying about this stuff and trying to call Article 5, getting us back into a war, and it was over lies. And these are things that people do, and I've shared a lot of videos too with crisis actors and staged and planned events, even with 9/11 and January 6th. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to yesterday's video. It's very, very clearly there. And yes, even Alex Jones, unfortunately, is part of this, whether he is fully aware, you know what I mean, that he's controlled opposition or not. Because again, I say sometimes people think that they're on the good side and they're actually not. And then I was even showing where he was doing like coordination with InfoWars and stuff like that, people, and part of like using crisis actors on the left and right. So I've said this before too, and that's why I call out all sides, right? And I say it's part of the same bird, and it's just even with Proud Boys, like they had people that were um, being used to have such a poor impersonation of veterans and things like that, which was really frustrating and insulting. But so further to that, so I look at Zelensky, and he's about 5'2". I don't know, but he's very, very small in stature. And he is someone that's trying to push for war. This was going to be something that was going to be diplomatic. I'm going to show a really good video of the summary that I've talked about, because it's just a little bit better than I can, because I go on all these tangents. But I will talk about fitness standards and training and stuff like that, and how he wouldn't even make it past like the common army phase, nor would he even make it past boot camp. Um, and so like this is why like people that serve as leaders, if they're going to be people that are talking about strategies and defense and like military operations and things like that, and internationally as well, then these are people that need to be people that can actually be qualified, right? Because like he can't, doesn't even look like he can do a lot of push-ups, a lot of pull-ups, doesn't look like he can carry a lot of weight for long periods of time. And this is like things that are important, right? So for my phase training in the infantry, I was the first female in the history of my regiment, the PPCLI, and I served from 2001 to 2016 when we were actually in a war. And then yeah, from there incorporated, and then started working high level contracts with all levels of government. But since I've started speaking about this stuff, especially in Ottawa, like it's not going over well, because people are just so friggin' blind to the reality, and it's just annoying. So there was a 77% failure rate in my phase 3 infantry, and this was like predominantly men and then me on this course. And that was before they started making it a little bit easier and easier to pass, and made it modular and stuff like that as well. But it is what it is. But these used to be courses that were 2.5 3 months long each, right? So we would do our university training courses and stuff like that, because I went to RMC during the school years, and then during every single summer we would be doing training for the army, right? So it would start with boot camp, and then you go from there to a common army phase, and then there's people from all like army environments, and then like there's even like air defense people in there as well because they do field stuff, and then people get like more specialized within their careers or their trades, right? So you go after that common army phase, and then like artillery engineers, combat engineers, I'm talking about in the infantry and the armor and other people, they start doing their own specialized courses. And then even from there, there's phase 3 infantry, which is dismounted platoon operations and above. And then the phase 4, which they call the gentleman's course, which I didn't care. It didn't offend me. I wasn't crying. It was a gentleman's course. Again, like I was one of one. And even when people try to do interviews with me and stuff like that, I wouldn't have it. And I would say, like, talk to the guys because I don't want to be what's representing the Canadian Armed Forces, Patricia's, you know what I mean? Like, because I'm a woman, right? And so, like, it would be it would be misleading to say the least. Even though, like, I can get my face out there, I never cared about that stuff. And anyway, and even for me as a female, I've even showed videos, even the last couple of years, like in the last year or two, I haven't done like proper pull-ups consistently in a couple of months. So like I might only be able to do 5, for example, to start, but like I've done like even like on the record 15 clean pull-ups and over 75 counted push-ups I've done, like where like even with staff like army staff and stuff like that actually counting, and if you don't go all the way up all the way down, then they don't count. And then I've gotten 12 and a half on the beep test. Again, these are all like recorded. Like I've won like wing harrier races. I was like 450 club for RMC. Like I lifted, you know, like my deadlifts was like over 300 pounds, and even squatting over 200 pounds. And these are all on the record. Even my hack squat, I could do 7 plates on each side, and I've shared that. And that's even recently within the last year, but I have to take it easier now because I don't want to hurt my back anymore. Um, and this is just to give you an example of the fitness. And then there's like rucksack marches, right, where you're carrying like a lot of heavy weight on your back with, you know, tacked vests, flak jackets, like ammunition, water, helmets, firearms, all of these things on you. And then your rucksack, basically like your sleeping arrangements for like a few days to a few weeks. And then you'd be doing patrols and stuff like that, like by day and night. You know, like didn't matter the season, you know what I mean? Like in extreme weather conditions, whether it be extreme heat or extreme cold, because it's Canada. And and again, I was like I was at the height of Afghanistan, the whole thing, not even at the height. And so like I did a lot when I wasn't deployed or you know, going places. I was like training, like I was in the fields, right? And so many people, and there's more to it. So we'd have to do like strategic stuff, operational stuff. And so I was the battle group embarkation officer, and I was a convoy operations officer, and and again, even like 2IC in the special forces of a squadron, and even brigade G3 ops and stuff like that. And these are all like high level coordination stuff that you need to put together. And so Justin Trudeau and like no one in cabinet right now has literally any experience like this, and I don't even know what their security clearance is, to be honest with you. I don't know if it's like default top secret, but it is what it is. But like, so yeah, so Zelensky, like he would not have passed any of our courses, and so how dare he, you know, push for our soldiers to die in his war. And it just infuriates me because I've been to war. It's not like I'm coming here saying like, oh, like peace and love, because you know, I'm afraid of. No, like I put my money where my mouth is. I am even like someone that got a task force commander's commendation for actions during a major battle group operation. And and I've even again offered my services to go to Ukraine and help with medevacs and stuff like that, and in neighboring regions, and then also with the Afghanistan pullout, and calling out, by the way, the drone strike that killed civilians, innocent civilians, and not what they were calling terrorists. So again, like there's just like a lot of people within my network that think that I'm like an extreme propagandist, or whatever, pro-Russian propagandist, but I even call out what's going on in Russia, like for example, even with like him like killing more political dissidents, I don't know what you want to call it, and like even with his special forces friend, you know, in an aircraft you know, accident. And then like even talking about like a fake moon landing, because you know like my stance on that stuff. But I will stop talking for a bit and just say I did want to bring that up because like people that again, if they're going to be talking about war and strategies and stuff like that, if they don't even know how to do a combat estimate. And I taught that to like our also like because I was an instructor and course officer in Gagetown teaching phase 4 infantry as well to incoming graduates and stuff like that to go to the battalions. And So could be seen as an expert. So I'm going to share the Zelensky one first, please. And again, the people that are trying to push for war are people that wouldn't even have made it in boot camp, right? So like these people that are on some kind of like a power like ego trip, like anyway.
And there are anti-truths.
Zenry is on YouTube.
See, I've learned that there are falsehoods and lies, and there are anti-truths. And an anti-truth is something that's so preposterous that you couldn't make a claim that's more opposite to the truth.
You know, 1 year later, Kyiv stands, and Ukraine stands. Democracy stands.
Whatever you think of the war in Ukraine, it is pretty clear that Zelensky has no interest in freedom and democracy. In fact, Zelensky is far closer to Lenin than to George Washington.
They have said, hey, Ukraine is a thriving democracy, and Zelensky is this hero that is protecting this democracy, which is why Biden says we'll do everything within our power to support him. And oh, by the way, we're going to send almost $100 billion of American taxpayer dollars to go and support this defense of democracy. But when you actually look at what Zelensky's democracy is, you see no freedom of the press. He has shut down any media that he does not control, his government does not control. He has gotten political opposition arrested, made sure that that's happened. As you mentioned, he shut down the biggest Ukraine church in the country. And I found this quote today. He has actually threatened to punish, quote, any Christian caught worshiping in unapproved ways. So this is the democracy that they are saying, well, we need all of your money, our money, taxpayer dollars to go and defend. This is their shining example of democracy. It's no surprise then when we look at what's happening here at home, Tucker, and it's no surprise how we see the political and power elite so easily and willing to undermine our own democracy, undermine our own freedoms, abusing their power to achieve their own political interests, because they look to Zelensky's democracy and they see a reflection and opportunity for themselves.
He is a dictator. He is a dangerous authoritarian who has used $100 billion in U.S. tax dollars to erect a one-party police state in Ukraine. And that's not an overstatement. Over the past year, Zelensky has banned opposition parties. He shut down critical media by force. He's arrested his political opponents. He has sent soldiers into churches. Zelensky's secret police have raided monasteries across Ukraine.
So let that sink in. They're attacking religious people there, and and
even
more.
A convent full of nuns, and arrested dozens of priests for no justifiable reason whatsoever, and in clear violation of the Ukrainian constitution, which no longer matters. And in the face of this, the Biden administration has said nothing, not one word. Instead, they just continue to push to send Zelensky more tax dollars. So naturally, Zelensky has become much bolder. Why wouldn't he?
The most corrupt government in Europe is a country by the name of Ukraine. Now, you may have heard of this country, Ukraine. It is the most corrupt government in Europe. The Guardian did a deep dive on Ukraine's corruption. In fact, right now, you can go to the U.S. State Department's website and you can see how they document Ukraine's corruption as late as the year 2021.
Again, maybe even at that point, like I don't necessarily even think that they may be the most corrupt in Europe, but there's certainly human trafficking, money laundering, biolabs, lying about like crimes against humanity that they're committing and trying to blame on Russia to put us in a war, like coups, staged coups, like even in 2015. And there's just so much that I like. This is not far away from Canada, ladies and gentlemen. We're already seeing.
In fact, the United States State Department discourages and even warns U.S. businesses from doing business in Ukraine due to widespread corruption and a government that is anti-democratic. You know, lock up opposition, lock up journalists, make them disappear. This is on the State Department's website. It has been for years, actually. The U.S. State Department in 2021 detailed how the Ukrainian government has a history of making people disappear at the hand of their secret police. So we were shocked We were shocked to learn overnight that there was gambling going on inside this establishment, that the corruption in Ukraine is even worse than ever. The Ukrainian government confirmed the resignation of multiple high-ranking Ukrainian officials caught in a massive corruption scheme.
So that's where a lot of our money went, by the way. And this was even last year, too, where a lot of them were fired because of that.
This is being called the largest.
Our money that could go to veterans, that could go to first responder types, that could go to Wounded Warriors Canada, that could go to Indigenous peoples to get friggin' clean water. Like, oh my goodness, there's just so much that we can do with this here.
Mass resignation and corruption scandals since the Russian invasion began. So far, over a dozen high-ranking Ukrainian officials have quit their posts after it was revealed that they were stealing U.S. aid money.
The official narrative on this whole war, it's just like it makes no sense. And again, like I said, remember, the same people who are pushing this are the ones who are telling you Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and stuff. The word they use over and over and over again, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, all of them, unprovoked. Vladimir Putin led an unprovoked war in Ukraine. But to say he was unprovoked is like insane. It's just only people who know nothing about the history of this conflict would say there was no provocation.
Zelensky ran on peace. He ran on bringing the country back together, right? The Russian speakers in the East, the Donbass, but he didn't do it. So why? Because he got threatened by NATO and the ultra-right in Ukraine. And so they threaten to kill. He knows he's a dead man if he does a peace deal with Russia. So that's why he won't. And when they had a peace deal in March, and that's when Boris Johnson from the UK flew there and said, hey, you don't do this. And he killed the peace deal. So Russia is the one that wants peace in this deal, and Ukraine and NATO do not. They want to bleed Russia economically, and that's why they blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. There was a peace agreement in 2014. The CIA helped overthrow the Ukraine government, and then the people in the Donbass didn't want to go along with this coup government, right? Because the leader of Ukraine wanted to be friendlier economically with Russia instead of join like the European Union. And that they couldn't have that, right? So that's why they did a coup. And the people, the Russian speakers in the Donbass didn't want to go along with that coup. And so they kind of wanted to break away. Ukraine government started shelling the Donbass. And so they had a peace agreement called the Minsk Agreement. And that was supposed to give them independence. They were supposed to have their own elections, and they were going to stop shelling them. They never did. They ended up killing like 14 or 15,000 people in the Donbass over the last 8 years. And now it's been revealed that that peace agreement was never real. The Merkel, the former prime minister of Germany, just admitted that the only reason.
Look how much she shakes. Like, I don't know if she's just weak and just like, I don't know, like cold, like I have no idea, or just like a weak, unfit, not suitable to be, discussing war with anyone. Like, again, she couldn't even do a push-up or a pull-up, guaranteed. Like, these people couldn't do again. So we did long distance rucksack marches and stuff like that, but then also like sprinting agility work and you name it. And these people would not.
Reason they did that peace agreement was to give Ukraine enough time to build up its military, so when they finally did provoke an invasion, which is what they did, that they would have a military ready to fight Russia. And so people don't know this is what happened. And so they just think that one day Putin woke up and said, I want to go invade Ukraine because I'm a maniac. And they think that he's the bad guy. They think that he's acting rationally. We always knew he would do this. In fact, we were counting on him doing this. That's why we did what we did. And they don't know that Ukraine ramped up their bombing right before the war started last year. They like doubled their bombing. They were really trying to provoke it, and they did. They provoked it. And the Russian would rather have a peace agreement. The rest of the world would rather have a peace agreement. Not NATO, not Joe Biden, not the military-industrial complex. And so that's where we are. The United States are the world's terrorists.
And it's not like you wouldn't have a job if we didn't go to Ukraine, right? Like, we have so much within Canada too. Like, even our sorry, I just gotta close this down. Even our military right now, like they're talking about budget cuts, and there's just because of this like whole woke narrative that's been going on, there's a lot of people that have gotten out just in the last year or two, like over 5,000 people, and so we're not even like a functioning operational military anyways, right? And we have such a vast amount of land that we need to like rebuild, regroup, reorganize, and redefine like the ethos of the Canadian Armed Forces as a whole collectively, and then also look at the areas that we're operating in. and who we're operating with, and then even with like with the defense in the north, being that like we're close to the center of the earth. We also need to look at those areas more now, and so much. But with like Melanie Jolie and Chrystia Freeland, these people these people have no background, no experience like with any of this stuff. Like, well, like this is why we're failing in Canada right now. So I'm not a pro-Russian propagandist. I'll reiterate. I will say it's more convoluted than people are being led to believe here. And I'm not saying that either side is doing things that are justifiable in certain cases. But I understand where certain groups are coming from when they're and Russia's getting like they're not winning in this either, right? Like they're economically like they're doing like not well at all, and they're going to be further and they're going to further to have like economic collapse like the longer they're pushed into this. And I'll reiterate, they wanted this to be diplomatic, and it was NATO that was coming in and insisting that this be a war. And I have whiteboards, like I was saying, months before this was initiated, where people were saying like, oh my god, this was like not known and stuff like that, like this was possibly going to come. And yeah, and it's just unfortunate that we're living in these times. And I've talked about the Stanford prison experiments before. Very, very interesting, but I just wanted to show it to you again and just show you how easy it is for people to get into their roles.
In 2015, the Stanford prison experiment was released in theaters. The movie detailed the infamous 1971 experiment in which 24 college students were put in prison. Now, while the experiment was supposed to last for 2 weeks, it was terminated after 6 days due to psychological.
It was voluntary, and these were not actual like criminals. Like these were like mostly students and stuff like that were given money for this.
Effects that it was having on both the guards and the prisoners. So what actually happened during the Stanford prison experiment? Why is it so infamous? And does the movie get everything right, or is it just a dramatization? This video will briefly explain the experiment, its impact on the world of psychology, and the controversy that it's facing 45 years in the future. So first off, what is the Stanford prison experiment? After Milgram's experiment rocked the world of psychology, many people were left with questions about obedience, power dynamics, and the abuse of power. Philip Zimbardo, a professor at Stanford, wanted to then explore these questions further, and with a grant from the Navy, Zimbardo set up something called the Stanford Prison Experiment. He wanted to see, could a person's role influence their behavior? Zimbardo and his team interviewed 70 applicants at Stanford who were willing to participate in the study for 14 days and receive $15 a day. They wanted to make sure that they chose the brightest and the most mentally sound participants. And after narrowing down their applicants to 24, the researchers flipped the coin and assigned the roles. Half of the participants would be prisoners, and the other half would be guards. Now, the researchers then set up a basement at Stanford to make it look like a real prison. They were very serious about treating the experiment like a simulation. Prisoners were actually arrested in public and taken into prison. They were even booked, fingerprinted, and strip searched. Now, Zimbardo's team also gave prisoners numbers that were meant to be used instead of their real name. They claimed that it would help give the prisoners a sense of anonymity and help the experiment. Guards had pretty much free reign over how they could treat the prisoners, although they had 2 main rules. They could not hit the prisoners, and they could not put prisoners in solitary confinement for more than an hour. Philip Zimbardo played the role of the prison superintendent. His graduate students and research partners also played roles as members of the parole board and the prison warden. Prisoners were tasked with certain activities like writing a letter home to their visitors and making a case to the parole board about why they should be let off. Guards also subjected the prisoners to counts in which they forced the prisoners to do jumping jacks, push-ups, and other degrading tasks. Now, it did not take long for these guards to start to abuse their power. Within 1 day, a guard actually hit one of the prisoners with his nightstick. On the second day, the prisoners tried to rebel, and so their beds were taken away. To punish these prisoners, the guards shot a fire extinguisher into the cell. Guards used physical and psychological abuse, including things like sleep deprivation, to punish and intimidate the prisoners throughout the study. The prisoners were forced to wear dressings and stocking caps the whole time, and at some point, the guards would put bags over the prisoners' heads. And since the study has ended, it has since been compared to actions at the Abu Ghraib detention center. Zimbardo has written about the case and its parallels to the prison experiment since. So why did this...
See, even at Carleton University, we learned about this, and actually had like the original research paper, like documentation and stuff like that, and it still blows my mind. And even with Universe 25 with mice, I highly recommend looking at that as well. I've talked about this for a long time, but
experiment gets shut down. Well, very quickly, the guards started to abuse their power. The prisoners started to spiral. On the third day, prisoner number 8612 started to cry and scream uncontrollably. He threatened to harm himself and call a lawyer. To avoid potential psychological damage or a lawsuit, he was let go. 2 other prisoners were let go in the next 2 days. One actually refused to eat. And on the 5th day, Zimbardo's girlfriend, which was actually his former student, came to visit the experiment. Zimbardo and his team had been monitoring the experiment and playing their roles in it 24/7. And when she saw the horrors that was going on in the prison, she asked Zimbardo to end the experiment immediately. She even threatened to break up with him. Well, eventually.
See, this is why it would be nice if, even in male-dominated environments, if you actually have a woman that's qualified and capable to be in and around that group. Like, it's good to have like a possible differing perspective, because even on the behavioral spectrum, like you have extreme left, extreme right, but you also have like where males, generally speaking, they're the more physical aggressors, like they're the ones that commit the murders, more the violent acts, the rapes and things like that, and women are more the sociopathic, I guess, tendencies, like character defamation, things like that, but also like just allowing things to happen in a non-physical way. So even with like the writing orders and policies and stuff like that too, that when they know that it's going to lead to like the deaths of like many people, like that would be something that would be where women don't get there, because we're with a smaller, generally speaking, the weaker of the sexes. So we generally speaking need to use other means like our brains and or our words in order to fight and defend ourselves and or whatever attack. And men, generally speaking, because they have that physical advantage, generally speaking. Anyway.
Actually, on the 6th day, he ended.
So we also think more about people, and men, generally speaking, think more about things. That's why even in the STEM fields, generally speaking, men tend to gravitate more towards that, because women are just generally inherently more. It doesn't mean that they're better or worse at these things, because again, I know a lot of women that are very, very smart mathematicians, engineers. I'm not dumb either, right? And I've even shared like mathematical equations like from for like technical data for anyway. And but generally speaking, women tend to gravitate more towards careers where there's like being of service and being around people, right? So like the nurses, the teachers, and generally speaking, like usually around those things. And then men, where you can operate, like more alone for like extended periods of time, doing experiments and research and stuff like that, and remote locations, and not worry about it as much and be impacted by it as much.
The experiment. This experiment showed the world how quick.
And because and we take people more into consideration, we're more apt to want to protect them at all costs too, right? And because like women, like we spend a lot of time like with our babies being like inside of our freaking bodies, right? 9 to 10 months, and then like raising this offspring, right? And so these are all things, again, that takes time. It's very like and there's more of a connection, I guess, with that piece. And so whereas men can procreate like with multiple people, like even during like one person's pregnancy or term, like we are limited. And so that's another reason why we like consider people more than men generally do as well.
Quickly, people can abuse power when
I hope that made sense.
It's given to them. But it remains as one of the most controversial experiments in the world of psychology. And there's a few reasons why. The first one is obvious, and it's the case for psychological abuse that the prisoners endured during the study. Is it ethical to put human subjects through that kind of distress and trauma? So much so that many couldn't even endure the experiment? Now, Zimbardo claims that none of the participants have suffered long-term psychological consequences, but the point still stands. And in more recent years, critics have come forward to say that the results were not as natural as Zimbardo and their team may want you to think. Transcripts and audio recordings from the Stanford prison experiment show that Zimbardo's team coached these guards. They told them to be tough for the sake of the experiment. Even the prisoners may have been faking their responses. Prisoner number 8612, who is most well known for his blood-curdling quote, "I'm burning up inside." He has come forward to say that his time in the Stanford County Jail was more of an improv exercise. Many critics have likened the experiment to a drama rather than a legitimate psychology experiment. Carlo Prescott, the experiment's prison consultant, has also come forward to say that the experiment's more cruel treatments were not naturally thought up and executed by the guards alone. He wrote the following in an op-ed. Ideas such as bags being placed over the heads of prisoners, inmates being bound together with chains, and buckets being used in place of toilets in their cells were all experiences of mine at the old Spanish jail section of San Quentin, and which I dutifully shared with the Stanford Prison Experiment Brain Trust months before the experiment started. To allege that all these carefully tested, psychologically solid, upper-middle-class Caucasian guards dreamed this up on their own is absurd. So you can take that for what you will. But let's talk a little bit about the lasting effect of the Stanford prison experiment. It seems to have raised more questions than it answered. Where should psychologists draw the line when it comes to subjecting participants to distress for science? And how easily can psychologists blur the lines of an experiment versus a simulation or a drama? And if the Stanford prison experiment doesn't exactly answer its original questions about power dynamics and obedience, what similar experiments can? These are just some of the questions that psychologists face today about the experiment. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned.
So I hope that was interesting for everyone. And so now, because I've mentioned this on multiple videos about Cladex and Event 201 and many other things, I was on Woo's News channel again, and there's some pretty good content regarding Event 201 as well. Again, using crisis actors. There we go. I have so many tabs up.
News features videos from the internet and is intended for a mature audience. News does not condone the activities performed and discourages anyone from attempting them. Enjoy.
Because of Coco virus, you are going to be quarantined, but you have a choice. Do you A, quarantine with your wife and child, or B?
Okay, so women don't end up with a man like that, okay? Because like again, like the man is supposed to be the protector, and if in a life, altering event, like he's just gonna like not want to protect you and your child, his child, then out the door. Well, he was probably joking. I hope he was joking.
Does it not rip you to pieces to not know what was behind door B? It's like a modern apocalyptic Sophie's Choice. And if there's anything we want out of all this Coco hoopla, it's more game shows, especially when a broken home is at stake. Welcome to Woo's News, and welcome to day 57 of your lockdown, peasant. 57 days we've been lagging, and we have some catching up to do, which is why we've named this episode Lagatha. And for the duration of this broadcast, we will be referring to this obvious pandemic as Coco.
No, not face.
God forbid we allow Mrs. Lazyface and her Autobots to censor us and add one of those ridiculous Coco banners, so we're going to censor ourselves. It's better this way. Technically, I'm not allowed to be on television again after my little accident. You say meltdown, I say milkshake.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. Everybody's out of work, or scared of losing their job. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. God damn it! My life has value! Get up out of your chairs, open the window, stick your head out and yell, and say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Where you go? Because everybody's yelling.
Hey, that's one beat away from Mardi Gras. Oh, the shrills of lemmings. Well done. Geez, you have one moment of vulnerability and everyone starts praising the NHS. These nurses are having the time of their life, God bless them. If only their patients could say the same. Wait, where are all the patients? It seems like everyone these days are running out of patience. Aw, too soon? Take it away, PK, on this week's User Breakdown.
7 o'clock, that's when all the idiots start tuning their horns. But look at this, will you? Here we go. This is your tax dollars at work. The whole emergency network in New York City out here dancing around. I mean, what the hell? Look, I've said it all along, Americans, they're a different breed. They honestly are a different breed. And some of the shit that they come up with, everybody's got to record this, put it on your cell phone, show everyone at home. This idiot drops a mask and picks it up. Honestly, you'd think they all won the jackpot. She's honoured to be an idiot. Look at these poor kids. You've got no idea what the future lies ahead for him. Thank you so much, these blonde idiots today.
Are there a lot of dead bodies?
Just walk away. Don't want to talk about dead bodies. What people are supposedly dying inside from this virus. The joint's empty. Oh, you're not overworked. Don't look like it. Oh, don't like that question.
Mom, I want to see the healthcare workers. Here they are, son. Oh, that is the creepiest thing you ever did see. When you're staring death right in the face, it is always best to calm thyself.
So when I'm showing you the videos, I can't see myself or any comments or anything like that. So, yeah, apologize for that.
With a lullaby.
Not until you get on the bed.
I'm not getting on that bed.
Man, help me out, bro.
It doesn't work like that, bro. Bro, no!
Come on, man.
It don't work like that, man. This shit ain't right, man. Oh, nah, don't put the phone down now. Nah, bro, leave it alone. I don't want to leave it in my own, bro. Get your motherfucking hands on me, bro. It don't work like that, bro. I will tell this bitch up. Get on me, bro. Come on. Come on, bro. Come on. Help! I ain't saying right. All right. It's going to be a revolution now. Yeah.
It's gonna be a revolution now. You know how many people I know that are not vaccinated watched that and thought that was real, and yeah, and it was like just something that they were trying to share, saying like, look what they're doing. You know what I mean? And so unfortunately, you know, like people do on both sides. Clearly, I'm saying like there's inconsistencies in inaccurate stuff, right? And so I share all sides. So it's not just Don Lemon and like the leftists. There's also the rightists. I even said with Alex Jones and others like him.
Yeah.
Like the death toll.
And this guy, he's trying to elicit emotional responses in people that are not vaccinated, right? So this is where it's frustrating because it's making them angry that people are forcing people to do things that they have so many different reasons why they think that they shouldn't have that in their bodies, right? With the spike proteins, with like the clots that were coming out, with like myocarditis and pericarditis issues, and like there was I've shared like the side effects and stuff like that. I can reshare. The original trials being debunked, like not having a placebo, control group, and 4.6% of people within the original trials contracting COVID through the actual therapeutic itself. And then there were also other illnesses and viruses that were contracted via that delivery mechanism. And so these were things that people needed to consider, and not aspirating needles, because at first we thought that it would be localized to the area and like it wouldn't go to like different organs and stuff like that. And then turns out that like these were also like again like collecting these spike proteins and stuff like that into like the brain, into like fertility organs and stuff like that. And there's so much, right? And so when people see something like that, right, it's like if you see someone getting it's someone being forced to do something that's possibly lethal against their will, and of course there's going to be people that are going to fall for it. Even in China, there was like videos, and I've shared this before, of like they had these like trucks, these freaking transformer things that were like scooping up humans that were dead on the ground from COVID. No, these were mannequins. I've shared, like, zoom in to these photos. I'll go back to that Democratic girl that was saying that there was an illegal immigrant that attacked her in front of her kids and stuff like that. The blood was blatantly fake. And so, and there's people on both sides, right, that like looked at that and they're like, this is not okay. Or people were saying, oh, good, that's karma, right? Like she's been slamming, right-wing policies or Republican policies now for years, you know what I mean? And wanting them in, and now it's come full spin type thing. And actually just recently, within like the last, I don't know, I want to say 24 hours, there's now like an emergency at the border declared in the US. And they've had like the record amount of illegal immigration attempts and successful, whatever you want to call it, just now, like recently. And anyways, I'm going on all these tangents. Sorry about that.
Well, this creep factor keeps getting higher. 2020, for all her wit and charm, is not always hindsight. And sometimes it's oddly queer. Or is it queerly odd? Take a look at this.
What clip are you about to show?
Oh, no, not that kind of queer, y'all.
Okay, thank you.
But, oh, shalom, it kind of is.
Pope walks up to the window. Look right back here. Something. You see that little black thing come up? And then watch. Gives his blessing and poof, he's gone.
Now, you know someone's getting fired for that one.
Did you see that? Slowly moves away.
Does it count as child molestation if you're a hologram?
Did you see that?
Who is real these days? That is just as bad as Anderson Cooper's green screen nose.
There had been that. I was going to say that if he did make contact, if he did make...
And if that poor CGI didn't want to make you hold on to your butts, pun intended, then maybe this will.
And the government is committed to reaching net zero by 2050. But how much will...
See it, like I can, because I've seen these before, like you'll see, like look at his
coronavirus impact what many
Oh my God,
believe
did you
would
see
be
that?
a green budget.
Oh, this little spice of chicanery wants you to know that the Chancellor's first spending round will be the greenest yet. You're a fraud! WTF? Snopes is gonna have a field day with that.
Remember the many small acts of kindness done by us.
The great toilet paper races of 2020 were some of the most tragic images resulting from cocoa. The stakes are high, with the pandemic as the backdrop, toilet paper as the prize, and you're only one monkey away from Mario Kart.
And here they come.
It's like Black Friday without the Friday.
Somebody is going to get hurt.
Get the epic first place.
So just to this Dot Connector. Fruits do not cause illness, toxins, and dietary deficiencies do. I tend to agree with a lot of what's being said. Yeah, not all, but a lot. And well, I can go on a tangent too, just about like about fungus and bacteria and then other microorganisms that eat away at the at what you're talking about, the like the toxins and stuff like that that are caused and again dietary deficiencies as well is also what causes illnesses. So I absolutely agree with what you're saying there, and I highly recommend people take a look at germ theory as well, and yeah, that'll blow your mind. That's another rabbit hole. Let's go back.
Oh my God, this is so sad.
That was a massive cart full of toilet paper.
I actually can't believe this. I actually cannot believe this. Never in my life have I seen anything like that.
I've never seen it. I guess that's what's going on.
It's very typically Australian. Shameful.
I just want white. No, not what that.
Hey, what?
She smacked her.
SMH, y'all.
You looking for me? Are you looking for me? I love being popular. Everybody loves me now.
2020 Love Her to Pieces has sashayed all over our rug, and it ain't coming out. Not even with that baking soda combo trick you learned on WikiHow's gonna lift them stains. Actually, can somebody tell me what the fuck a wiki is? Because it sounds like a place I might like to visit. Let us not forget the mass exodus of corporate CEOs, including self-proclaimed scientist and Dr. Bungalow Bill, who have stepped down from their positions. Really Graceful has the news.
The number of CEOs who stepped down in a month, at a total of 219 departures, but I didn't really start paying attention until the CEO of Disney announced his resignation. MGM, IBM, Salesforce, and LinkedIn, Nestle Waters, BlackRock co-founder, several Wall Street CEOs. When the stock market crashed a few weeks later because of the panic the media created over coronavirus, I began to wonder, were these CEOs tipped off to the chaos that was to come as a result of worldwide pandemic? Did they all cash out before heading to their bunkers? If you take a look at the stocks of most of these companies whose CEOs stepped down in January and February, they all follow the same pattern of peaking in February and plummeting in March. This whole ordeal was really punctuated by Bill Gates stepping down from the Microsoft board of directors over the weekend, which he said was in an effort to dedicate more time to philanthropic priorities, including global health and development. Hilarious, right? These jokes write themselves these days.
I would file that under F for fishy and filler.
Come on, go, I need to go. Let's go eat some fried fish.
I'm sorry, when did Madonna become Asian?
Fried fish.
Oh, I'm the loser?
Cause there's no more pasta. Oh no. We're gonna eat some fried fish.
Magic, you should really be encouraging Americans to eat healthier during a time like this.
Fried fish. Yeah.
Okay, am I the only one searching for a vial of adrenochrome against all those products? And since we're on the subject of exploitation, I wonder if y'all had seen the new hit documentary Event 201. No, Karen, you're not going to be binge watching this one, Missy, because them coming attractions ain't coming. They here go. That's right, you sad simpletons. Event 201 was a filmed drill sponsored by none other than your favorite Bill in partnership with the Johns Hopkins University. The high-level pandemic simulation, which was filmed on October 18th of last year, was established in the name of U.S. Viral Protection. And by golly, 2 months later, Coco was born.
No, not fake.
OMG, that's convenient.
These epidemic events are getting more and more disruptive to health and to economy. And the reason we called it Event 201 is we knew eventually one of these days, one of those events would be the big one.
That didn't actually explain why they called it Event 201. And this is coming from a guy named Morehart. Oh, invented a disease. Actors, okay.
The outcome of the CAPS pandemic in Event 201 was catastrophic. 65 million people died.
This is a mock-up, people.
It began in healthy-looking pigs, months, perhaps years ago. A new coronavirus spread silently within herds. Infected people got a respiratory illness with symptoms ranging from mild flu-like signs to severe pneumonia. Many died.
We will say, here's a hypothetical disease outbreak.
Oh, hypothetical, eh?
This is the way it might be evolving.
Well, the hype is right, that's for sure.
This is not about retribution. This matters going forward. We're in a live exercise here. We're in a live exercise here.
No, not fake.
Coco, say why y'all so creepy? Those lucky enough to have attended received a handbook for the recently diseased and this lovely plush plaything that could only resemble a morning star. We'll be right back, but first, Vanessa Hudgens wants you to know what she likes.
Like.
So, yeah. I hope it was it. I can't increase the speed of the video on Rumble because it just keeps on like interrupting everything. So on YouTube I can, and so I could discuss more. People are interested. Like I'm not sharing all of the comments that are on my StreamYard, but someone is talking about NATO that will collapse. And so this is why I've talked about BRICS too, where you have like Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and there's Saudi Arabia. There's so many other countries now that are being involved in their own alliance, and they're getting their own narrative and their own spin and interpretation of what's going on in Europe right now, and internationally. And so we are like even within Canada, like we're involving ourselves in things again when there's like a lot of corruption involved in this, and we're collapsing our own military, we're collapsing our own capacities to defend ourselves, like even on our own home turf, right? So like make your own bed, and so it's just it's just yeah, it's just so short-sighted and ignorant, and the last thing we should be involving ourselves in right now. Um, yeah, it's just frustrating that if like we would be so easily taken over, unfortunately, and we do have vital assets and and vital ground that we need to protect, and it's unfortunate that like if like we would have the capacity to do that, in like in the short term, then we would have to get international involvement, and that it is intentional and deliberate, right? Just with how they were able to justify trying to get third-party people in to police the people at the Freedom Convoy, right? That like I do believe that there were people that were flown in, that they went to certain airports within Ontario and other areas too, and got dropped in and then bust out and stuff like that and moved out, and were the ones that were like doing a lot of the policing, and again, like it's just we're in crazy times, ladies and gentlemen. And it'd be nice if we could just take a step back and regroup and redefine again, like all of our organizations, including like the RCMP and law enforcement, like at the provincial and federal level. And anyway, and then even with no, I'm going on all these tangents. So I like to finish my videos with like flat simulation Earth stuff, and just so you can tune out if you want to, because a lot of people, again, they're like they don't even want to hear it. So it is what it is, and you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. So I respect that, and so I don't want to start with this stuff. The question I always get is, oh yeah, well, where's the edge? And so there's even actual videos that are made specifically because like that question is asked so much. So this is, I think, what was like I think the Flat Earth Society, which is controlled opposition. I think they're the ones that put that together because it was stupid. And if like you're gonna like associate that with like what flat earthers believe, then of course no one's gonna believe that, right? Because like who would believe that? You know what I mean? And so this is always like just like I feel like that's just a very ignorant, short-sighted, lazy question that even with like just a little bit of research, like you could get around. And so I will just share screen and so you can actually get the good videos. It's actually in the title. And it's from the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac app. And I highly recommend people take a look.
So
it's not a long video.
Where's the edge?
Who's to say that there is an edge, and why assume there is one? Is it because when we are introduced to the idea of a flat Earth, it's always depicted like this? In the currently most accepted model, Antarctica is not a continent, but a 360-degree landmass made up of ice that holds the oceans within. When we look at a Gleason's map from 1892, that states at the top that it's scientifically and practically correct, as is. We see this Antarctic ice rim. The Gleason's map is basically an azimuthal equidistant projection, which can be traced back to—
Yeah, stop this for a second because I was just given a another. If you know about maritime admiral law, maritime law, could you talk about it sometime? Actually, yeah, I could bring that maybe in my next video. I actually have the Black's Law dictionary. Literally, I'm looking at it right now. It's in my it's on my bibliothèque, and yeah, it's very, very interesting about their classification of what a person is and what a human is and what a corporation is. And but I digress.
to the year 1000. The AE map is also an official map of the United States Geological Survey, the USGS,
if you go to
the official logo for the United Nations. The oldest known globe in the world is from 1492. This is something you need to keep in mind because many people argue that the azimuthal equidistant map is just a flattened out version of the globe, when in fact the globe is just a rounded version of this true world flat map. If the flat map came first and it has the ability to convert into a globe without any problems whatsoever, then that should tell you a little bit about how this globe deception was achieved. Now, back to if there is an edge or not. There is no proof that there is an edge past the Antarctic ice wall, but it is speculated by many that perhaps the plane that we live on is either extremely expansive or it's possibly endless. In these two scenarios, it would be logically assumed that more land is being hidden from the general public. In a 1954 interview with Admiral Richard E. Byrd, an American naval officer who specialized in exploration, he had this to say.
But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
Implying that there is more land past Antarctica. If that uninhabited land was on a globe, it would be in the Indian Ocean. A recent discovery of an old Buddhist map in a newspaper from 1907 seems to support the idea of a vast plain with much more land.
So there's an entire playlist about that. But because the question was asked again about Admiralty law, of course, I immediately thought of Jordan Maxwell. And so there is a video that I just searched. It's actually available on YouTube, which surprises me. But it's over an hour long, so I'll see what this is about. I haven't seen this before, but it might be talking about again, like walking the plank and Jordan Maxwell just passed away like fairly recently, and rest in peace. And I highly recommend people take a look at his work. And before I actually no, I'll go into this first.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here at the 4th Annual ConspiracyCon 2004 Memorial Day weekend. Appreciate that you're here. Most of you were here this morning when I made a few announcements about how many of our presenters are solution-oriented. And the person you're about to see is just such a person. He is going to be provided with an introduction, honored today by Jordan Maxwell, an associate and friend of ours here at the conference. And again,
So when you hear the concept being discussed by anyone of secret societies, I want to thank you all for being here with us today.
This is Jordan Maxwell.
A lot of kind words have been said about me, but I want to clarify a few things. I'm not the world's foremost authority on anything. I never have been, I'm not now, nor will I ever be. I'm too smart for that. Because I know how much I don't know. And I'm learning every day that I live, the world keeps opening up larger and larger. And I started this escapade back in 1959. I started talking to audiences in 1962 about secret societies, the New World Order, occultism. And it was in 1966 that Anthony J. Hilder produced his first record set with Myron Fagan on Illuminati. And it was Anthony J. Hilder and Myron Fagan who introduced into American society the idea of secret societies and Illuminati. So when you hear the concept being discussed by anyone of secret societies, and especially that word Illuminati, remember it was Anthony J. Hilder who introduced it, and the man who talked about it, Anthony actually produced the records, and it was Myron Fagan, a very important man that you need to know about, who's no longer with us. Myron Fagan was the man who introduced the idea of Illuminati. As I said, I was talking about these subjects back in 1962 before most of the people who now talk about it were even still in school. So consequently, I've looked at many different areas of conspiracy since that time. And I'm appalled at what I see happening in this country today. We are told that America is the land of laws, a nation built on laws. In point of fact, nothing could be further from the truth. America is run by people who are lawless. We have no law in America, and understand that. The law is whatever the powers that be in power happen to say it is today. Whatever they say it is, that's what the law is today. And it may change tomorrow. So what you need to understand is this is not a nation of laws, it's a nation of lawlessness. And somewhere along the line, we're going to be dealt with by that universal God force because of what we have allowed to happen in our country. Now, in relation to the subject today, which is the occult world of commerce, let me give you a couple of examples of I think where you need to start thinking. If you are going to send a box through the mail and you need to wrap it with some rope, you go out in the garage and you find some rope and tie up the box, and that should be sufficient to do the mailing. But if you're going to take that rope out to the edge of a 10-story building and hang on it, you better trust and you better examine the integrity of that rope now, because your life hangs in the balance on it. Another example is if you owned a 2-story building and you were going to put a lot of weight on the second floor. If you were smart, you would go downstairs first with a structural engineer, get on a ladder and go up through the ceiling tiles and examine the floor that you're going to put that weight on to see if the floor is going to hold that kind of. Understanding law and the words of law, there are two things that this planet has: water and earth, water and land. Consequently, there are two kinds of law: the law of the land and the law of water. You've heard the term law of the land, but in point of fact, that's precisely what this word means, law of the land, because it is the people who live on land. And that is opposed to something else called the law of the high seas, or the law of water. You need to understand the difference. The law of the land is the law of the culture that lives on the land. And so consequently, the law of the land is different in every country. You can do things in America you can't do in Russia. You can do things in Africa you can't do in England. So the law of the land is the law of the culture that lives on that particular land. However, there is a higher law that dominates the entire world. It's called the law of the water, or the law of the high seas. The law of water is referred to as the law of money. It doesn't matter what color you are, where you're from, or where you live. Money is money. And anytime you're doing banking or using money, you are now under the law of water, maritime admiralty. If you go back in history, in ancient history, where all of this began, back in the land of Canaan, and you probably have heard in the Bible, the land of Canaan. The Canaanites were Phoenician bloodline. And in the ancient Phoenician language, Cana meant merchant banker. The very word merchant comes from mer, M-E-R, for the sea, for water. As a mermaid, we have merchant. Merchant bankers. Let me give you an example of the difference between the law of water and the law of the land. The law of water, as I said, is a law of banking, money, as opposed to the law of the custom of the people or the law of the land. The Statue of Liberty must be put in water. It could not be put on American land as such. It had to be put in the harbor because it's not the Statue of Freedom. It's a Statue of Liberty. Liberty is what a sailor gets. When he pulls into port on a ship, he gets liberty. He's not free. So America is not the land of the free and the home of the brave. We're not free or brave, period. We're not free. This is not a free country. Now let me give you an example of how this law of the water works. Why is it that you have to go to court? People are always concerned about going to court. You go to court because you play basketball and tennis on a court. How do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. Why? Because that's what it is. It's a racket. And make no mistake, they do not pick words by chance. These words are very serious. They do not use words in terms with no avail. These words are very important. When you go into a court, what's the idea of going to court? It's a game, like basketball. The whole idea in a court is to put the ball back in the other guy's court. One team gets up and they throw the ball over to that team of lawyers. That team gets up and throws the ball back into their court. And consequently, it's a ball game. And the judge is wearing a black robe, so he is the referee. The judge is the referee. He doesn't care which side wins or loses because he's going to get paid anyway. So he couldn't care less. He's merely there as a referee, and that's why he wears a black robe. And that's another interesting subject we can get into later. But the judge is a referee between two teams. The judge, we are told, rules from the bench. The word bench in Latin is a bank. Therefore, the judge rules for the bank. Where do you find banks? You find banks on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the current. See? The juice. Consequently, your money is current, see, because it's the flow, the cash flow. And I'll give you an example of how this works. When a ship pulls into a harbor, all ships are referred to as female. Airships, rocket ships, sailing ships are always female. Why? There's a very good reason. Maritime Admiralty banking law says all ships are female because they're carrying items. They're carrying items for money, and so consequently they are under Maritime Admiralty law. Admiralty is where we get the word admiral, admiral of the Navy. Let me give you an example of how this works. When a ship pulls into harbor, it parks at the dock, and it ties off at the dock. The captain has to provide for the port authorities a certificate of manifest, because yesterday the ship was not here, but this morning the ship pulled in, so it has manifested. So consequently, all the products, the $800 million worth of TVs or Toyotas, have manifested. So each one of those items coming off of that ship has come off of water. And
So there's that one, and there's another one. Appreciate that from Dot Connector, who I highly recommend people take a look at their work. And so I'm going to take a look at Ken Scott and Karen Hughes. And so I just did a quick search. So I haven't seen this video, but I just looked at Ken Scott and Maritime Law to see what came up. Actually, is it? No, it wasn't. It would help if I showed you the screen. So I haven't watched this one, but it's about maritime law. We'll just see what comes up.
There are no countries, no governing bodies to tell us what's right and wrong. That's why maritime law exists. Let's start with a hypothetical. A baby is born on a cruise ship sailing in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. What nationality does it take? This is the coast of some fictional place in some fictional country governed by some fictional government. From this line, which is the water line at the lowest low tide, every country is allowed 12 miles of territorial waters. It used to be 3 miles, the distance a cannon could shoot offshore, but that has since changed. Those 12 miles are the property of a country. They can do pretty much whatever they please in it, and all domestic laws apply. Foreign ships are, however, sometimes allowed to enter into these waters under the principle of innocent passage. If ships have an innocent purpose, which does not include fishing, polluting, weapons practice, or spying, they are allowed to pass through the territorial waters of a foreign nation without permission, as long as they do so quickly and without stopping on shore. Beyond the territorial waters, there's another 12 miles of the contiguous zone. This zone allows a country to enforce laws as long as they fall into one of 4 categories. If the laws have to do with customs, taxation, immigration, or pollution, they can be enforced in the contiguous zone. Beyond the contiguous waters is the exclusive economic zone, also known as the EEZ. This zone extends 200 nautical miles from shore. Beyond the territorial waters, the EEZ is in international waters. However, only the country who holds the exclusive economic zone has the right to harvest natural resources in the area. This law was originally set up to help with disputes over fishing rights, but has since been incredibly useful with the boom in oil drilling. All these laws do, however, occasionally cause some disputes due to overlapping zones. This is the South China Sea, an incredibly important waterway. Nearly 1/3 of the world's shipping traffic passes through it, and it reportedly has huge untapped oil reserves. China has this land, so it says it has all this water. Malaysia has this land, so it says it has all this water. Vietnam has this land, so it says it has all this water. Brunei has this land, so it says it has all this water.
Okay, I'm not getting anything out of this video. I'm so sorry. So I'm just going to stop sharing. See if there's any comments. U.S. citizens are bonded. Birth certificates with Canada as well. Like when you have that code on the back, technically your own. Yeah. And there's ways that you can actually get around that, or have it where you're considered like a free person. But okay, so yeah, you're okay. This video is not maritime admiralty. Okay, yeah. So Jordan Maxwell had a good breakdown of that, and so let me see here. I wanted to end on like just like more. Stuff that I like to throw in. So this is from PhD.
Today's video will simply be a quick summary of an amazing flat earth proof made by our good PhD friend, Dr. John D. His video is extraordinary. It not only debunks the globe myth, but also teaches us in demonstrable detail about mirages and refraction and how the physics of refraction mirages cannot cause distant objects to magically refract around a physical curvature blockage to present a false flat earth. It's absurd. It's impossible. At the making of this video, Dr. John D's video only has 920 views, when it should have hundreds of thousands of views, and I only want to bring more attention to Dr. John's work. I'll have a link in the description, and I strongly suggest you watch the 1 hour and 15-minute long video, subscribe to Dr. John D, and share his video and channel everywhere. A big thanks to those channels which have already shared his work. Dr. John D's long-distance observations were of the Rampion Wind Farm, which is located 8 miles off the coast of England, between England and France. I have identified his approximate coordinates here, in front of the Worthing Sailing Club. Here is more documentation regarding the location of the wind farm. We are concerned with these 6 turbines on the left, numbered 1 through 6, which will appear on the right-hand side of the actual video. From the observer's position, the closest of those 6 turbines was a little over 8 miles away, and the furthest of the turbines was nearly 11.2 miles away from the camera. Now, Dr. John did film from 2 different camera heights, 2 feet and 3.5 feet. I'm going to be concentrating on the 3.5-foot footage. Here's footage of his camera at 3.5 feet, and also shows his location in front of the Worthing Sailing Club. Under the globe model, the horizon marks the physical point at which the purported curvature begins to obstruct distant objects. Dr. John D defined the globe physical geometric horizon as the maximum distance that the sea and the sky can be observed to meet. It's a good definition. You can calculate the distance to the alleged globe horizon by multiplying 1.225 and the square root of the observer's height in feet. Or you can just use an online calculator like this Earth curvature calculator that uses the official globe dimensions. So, according to the official globe math,
the Earth curve calculator, 8 inches per mile squared. Like again, it's out there, and you can do this yourself. So I highly encourage people to go out there and do this yourself.
3.5-foot observation height, the physical horizon would have to be closer than a mere 2.3 miles, and that's assuming a perfectly smooth ball. So, large waves, miraging, and atmospheric opacity may easily reduce that distance to the alleged physical horizon, but there's no way to increase the distance to the globe physical horizon without increasing the elevation of the camera. For brevity, I'm leaving out much of Dr. John Dee's footage, but you should go and watch it all. I chose this specific footage because there is a distant boat far behind those 6 turbines. Of course, the boat should be entirely hidden behind the supposed ball of Earth, but that's not what I want to address. Because the boat is higher prospectively than the base of the turbine that was 11.2 miles away, we know, as a matter of fact, that there is absolutely not even a centimeter of curvature present. Remember, according to the globe, the horizon was supposed to be closer than 2.3 miles, and that horizon is far beyond the turbine, beyond 11.2 miles.
And even
what is the reasonable implication of this video
Chicago,
evidence? This is indisputable evidence that there
with the Chicago footage that was sent out, you know, like 60 miles away, like this is impossible, right? With the globe Earth model, unfortunately. And these are calculations that they are the ones that provided. And if you don't know what the calculations are, even and you're trying to refute people that know more about the globe Earth model likely than you do, then it's just really it is what it is. But let me see if I can go into because like there's playlists too, right? Like that you can go into and but you're not going to be able to search this on Google, you know, even when you have a VPN and stuff like that, and like depending on which country you connect from, like a lot of this stuff is still very heavily censored. And yeah, it's just, let me see here.
If we live on a ball with a surface that is mostly water, all water must curve. In a bowl, a bath, a swimming pool, lake, a river, and the sea. All the water on this globe ball must curve. How curved should it be? And how far is the horizon? Emma is looking for the beach on the other side of the horizon. Her location is here. The beach is 8 miles or 12.9 kilometers away, allowing for Emma's eye height above the water, 1.5 meters, 5 feet. The geometric horizon will be 2.72 miles away or 4.37 kilometers. The beach is hidden by the horizon by 5.67 meters, over 18 feet at this distance. If the beach is 11 miles away, the horizon distance remains the same. The hidden amount of beach will be 13.95 meters, that's over 45 feet. If you had a warehouse 500 meters long, level in the middle with a perfectly flat floor, if it flooded, the water in the middle would be deeper by 2 centimeters than the outer walls. If we live on a ball that is mostly water, curved water should be very easy to find. One man made it his mission to look for it. Dr. John D. Position, there would be no large difference in the height of each else. 32 kilometers, this massive vessel should have been hidden by 70 meters or 228 feet.
This is just an extension of
Only the funnel of the ship should have been visible. If we live on a globe that is mostly water, all water must curve. No curvature whatsoever was observed. The observations are mathematically impossible. This is showing turbine 1 and 6, with a ship at 20.8 miles replaced with a turbine marked as S, at an observer height of 3.5 feet, 1.07 meters. This is what should have been observed. Then at 2 feet, 0.7 meters, even less of the turbines should have been seen. To have seen the base of turbine 1 to 6 and the ship at the horizon line, at the observer height of 3.5 feet, 1.07 meters. Turbine 1 would have to move up by 7.6 meters. Turbine 6 by 16 meters. And the ship by 70 meters. At 2 feet, 0.7 meters, this would be even more. But in the observation, we see the furthest base rising higher than the nearest, all well above the horizon. All the observed bases would have to raise even more. The furthest object would have to rise the most. The blue dotted lines represent the density of air layers, the lowest being the most dense. At each position, there would be no large difference in the height of each section of air. If we are on a globe, it is mathematically and optically impossible to observe this. Let's take a look at the optics at play during the observation. What were the conditions at the time of the observation? The temperature most of the day was at 25 degrees. Humidity was at 45 to 46%. Visibility was extremely good. The wind was very low at 3 to 5 miles per hour. The sun, being the main driver of the atmosphere, was low in the sky. Ideal conditions for the layering of the atmosphere. We see distortion of the turbine blades as they are rotating. The blades at the top have little distortion till they hit an atmospheric layer. There is over a mile in distance between the first and last turbine. The turbines all look out of proportion. The generator sections in the middle of the blades should reduce in size due to perspective. The yellow base's width should also be reduced. In this observation, they all look the same size. The same again in this shot. The furthest and closest base look the same width. They should look like this. The furthest by over 2 times. It's the same again in this shot. This was the same throughout the observation. The further the turbine, the more magnification.
Okay, so this is all math. I've shared this before, but I will again, just because it's interesting to look at, because it's not just videos. Again, these are actual people that are actual experts in their fields that present these, and they give their work and stuff like that, and they share the results. And so it's not just a YouTube video with memes, you know what I mean, and just like whatever you want to call it. It's actual. It's very interesting. So this is from NASA archives, and so from the Army Research Laboratory, propagation of electromagnetic fields over a flat Earth. And take a look. Look for yourself. So this is one example where they actually state it. And then if you want to go into NASA, I've shared this before. You just gotta copy and paste. Bear with me. So yeah. And let's see if you can control F this. See how many times. Let's go down. Okay, so flat ground. Okay, no. Flat Earth, flat Earth, flat idealized Earth, flat ground, same thing. Flat Earth, flat Earth, flat plane, and then even the references. Yeah. So you can take a look at this yourself. The report, and I will stop sharing this, and I will share just another example just from archives. So again, these are open source and interesting. Just like more stuff to like reinforce facts. So you can take a look at yourself. Technical Memorandum 81238. You know, take a look at the title, who wrote it, where it came from, the year, all that stuff. Let's see if you can actually get flat. Sometimes you don't even get to see it in here. Flat, non-rotating Earth. So there you go. All interesting stuff. So I'm at over an hour now. And so I will. Oh, yes, I actually like this point too. Also, planes don't correct for curvature. Snipers don't correct either. Neither do. Yeah. There's just like a long list of facts where even, again, I married a sniper. It was annulled, so it doesn't even count. But and I was I was 2IC of combat support company, and we had reconnaissance snipers and signals and stuff like that, and like never looked at Coriolis effect at all. It was not factored in, and yeah, and then even with pilots, people that I know personally, because I went to RMC, I went to West Point, I on an exchange, and I have done post RMC academic stuff, and obviously travel the world and things like that, and still maintain communication with people that are not dumb, and they even say too about like the flight paths that don't make sense on the globe Earth model, like it makes close to sense, but just how they have it like wrapped, like there's just like areas where like it's just blatantly obvious that that they're just like stretching and overlaying with the CGI and stuff like that, and it's and it makes no sense. Um, and Mercator and others have pretty accurate maps out there that yeah, that make more sense. And so this is and again, I'm not even saying that that is like the actual model, you know what I mean? But it's very, it's closer than what we're being shown now. And this is from Edward Hendry, Hendrie, and what he means by like that, like the planes don't keep on going down to correct for the curvature, like when they're going around. And because there's a spin too, by the way, why wouldn't you just like lift up the plane since the Earth is like spinning like 666, miles per hour, or like whatever it is, like depending on where you are, like 16 to 1800 kilometers per hour. And like slower speeds at the the top and the bottoms, like the poles as they claim, and so yeah, and going at a speed faster than aircraft. So like that's the point of that. And so like you would just be able to like lift up and then like land, in the country that you want to go to, like on that, like on that, like topsy turvy spinny globe thingy, and it's just not reality. Yeah, so even with the number 662, like even though it comes to mind with like even with the axis 23.4, so 90 degrees minus that is 666, and then even with the 666 miles per hour, and they use it for the 666,000 miles per hour, or 600 or 66,000 miles per hour, or whatever it is, because like we're apparently spinning, and then we're like revolving around the sun, and then we're like spinning in like in the galaxy, yet we have consistent, accurate like ecliptical paths of the sun and the moon and the wandering stars and luminaries above us, over our head, like annually, right? Where we're like even just yesterday being the fall equinox, the 23 of September, which again, where Jesus is sitting even right behind me in this Last Supper, and 666 is also part of like the like you've got the golden triangle. And then like when you have the golden triangle and then you would like do the inverted triangle also within it, then you get the like the hexagon, and then the like the Star of David mathematical model. And then you also have where it's like there's 2701 embedded in the coding, but then with that as well, like the triangles themselves on the sides equal like 666, 6 times 6 times 6, 216, whatever you want to call it. And so there's that as well. So it also being like a sacred number, that's like the base kind of coding of our of this realm. And like even with 6 and 9 being like looking like the spiral, the Fibonacci spiral, the golden ratio, and phi also, like I look at that, and yeah, I could go on tangents with 666. Like I'm going on all these, and even and we feel no motion, and this is also like when you feel like even like the slightest wind going 3 kilometers an hour, you're telling me that we're spinning at that speed, yet there's like no impact at all to like the birds and to the bees, and yeah, it's just and then people talk about oh well, what about aircrafts or trains? It's like, well, you're in a contained environment, right? So like if your head was out the friggin' window, you would feel it, ladies and gentlemen. So and even if like you like if for smoke, for example, as well, when you go outside, like it goes on its own like path, and because of the its density, or whatever we're gonna call it, in the space that it occupies, like it raises. But like if there was even like the slightest of wind, like it would be blown away, right? Where there's sometimes where you even have like difficulty smoking, like lighting fires or a joint or a cigarette or whatever because of wind. And yeah, there's so many like good points to that as well. And but I digress, and I will leave it at that. And I really do hope that everyone has a wonderful day.